Time Capsule, where we explore the meaning of life in the 21st century through the eyes of people just like you and me. I'm Joerenz.
And I'm Joenrhuz.
And today we have artist and prospective law student Michelle Bravo-Cano. Welcome, Michelle.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here with us today, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It's an honor.
Awesome. So can you tell us more about yourself and your profession?
Well, at the moment, I paint things. I like watching paint dry on canvases. But at the moment, I've been painting miniatures. I've been painting miniatures for like the past 3 years. I've been kind of trying to put myself into a more like professional limelight. I've been kind of painting miniatures for money recently. It hasn't been like successful, but it's been a pretty decent side gig recently. And I actually picked up a commission for like about $300, and I've been working on it in between working as a receptionist, trying to just make some extra buckaroos on the side. And at the moment, I'm also kind of waiting to hear back from law schools. I recently applied to law school.
Wow, well,
Nice. What law schools did you apply to?
I applied to St. John's, Hofstra, Brooklyn Law School, CUNY, and NYU. Obviously, I'm not going to get into NYU, but they always tell us to apply to the one you're least likely to get into and the one you're most likely to get into. So I thought, why not?
you have nothing to lose. You might as well just go for it.
Might as well roll with the.
Go big or go home.
Yeah. But it seems like I'm going to end up having to retake the test and probably apply again with the next cycle, but we'll see.
So what made you want to go into law?
What's funny is that I was thinking about it, and to me, it's really two reasons. One, it's the fact that I don't want to be a doctor because my mom is a doctor, and she was always like, you should be a doctor. And my dad was always like, you should do something with your life because painting and art, that's like a poor people thing. And you're not going to make any money doing it, So it was always like, be a doctor. But I didn't want to be a doctor because I've always seen my mom like bending herself like over backwards, and it always seemed like such a crappy profession and just not worth doing. So I was in high school, and high school is that time of life where you're going into college or getting ready to go into college, and on the applications it's like, what major do you want to go into? I had no idea what the hell I wanted to do. So for the longest time, I really had no idea what I wanted to do until I took my intro to law class in St. John's Prep. I forget what my teacher's name was. He was the dean of that year too. I think, what was his name? He was an old guy.
Ferroni.
Yes, Mr. Ferroni. And he was always yelling, trust no one, and all these kinds of things. I think he went to Fordham University as well. And he was a fantastic teacher. And he was really the person who got me into law. And I took my intro to law class with him, and I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do with my life. So that's really what got me into studying law.
Nice. So you said that, you were always pushed to become a doctor at a young age. So for a while, were you like under that spell? And, like, how did you get yourself to wake up from it?
Honestly, I think it was just watching my mom, like, like I said, just kind of growing up, watching my mom just suffering for so many years, and I think it in particular was the fact that my mom was an immigrant, to this country. And a lot of people are like, my mom wasn't, my parents were immigrants, and my grandparents were immigrants. And I had to see them, start in this country from the ground up. And I had to see my mom do that exact same thing, but I had to see my mom do that as a doctor, as a physician. And seeing my mom do that was pretty terrible, because my mom wasn't a young person when she came and did that. She was like 40 something years old. And it was pretty awful because she had to do all her her residencies, her internships, and seeing her do all these things and supporting a family all at the same time was just awful. And pretty much seeing her having to go, essentially having to go through her med school all over again was just something that had just turned me off completely. So that's just kind of what woke me up from just not pursuing medicine at all.
Right. But let's say that, you had let's say you had a more positive doctor influence in your life, that was complete opposite of what you saw through your mom. Do you think that would have influenced you otherwise?
Probably not, because I was also never good at science in general. But being like growing up, science was never my boon in class. It was always like history or like art and stuff like that, but never. No, I was never good at science. So I think that was also like, the negative part. Like in practice, I could do it because, like at the clinic, I could help my mom and the other MAs with things like, setting up the IVs, taking, vital signs and doing all these things in practice. But when it comes to the nitty gritty of the science and like remembering like the proteins and the medicine and the names and like the mathematics, that's where like my brain just shuts off. And I'm like, I can't do this.
Right. Oh my God. I'm getting like PTSD from my chemistry classes back in college before I dropped out of my pre-med courses. Organic chemistry.
No.
Yeah, God, no.
I don't even
Periodic table. Converted
like,
to moles.
Yeah, like my brain just shuts off at PS Cone. Like PS Cone, that's it. I'm out. That's all I know.
Oh my God.
That's all I remember from
What
chemistry.
do you mean is PS code?
PS Cone is, if I remember correctly, it's like the PSC.
Was that like the 5 most abundant elements or something?
Maybe.
Yeah, they're elements. So
Yeah.
I remember it's oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, sulfur, PS. I don't remember what P is. I think
You're hurting my brain.
I don't remember what P is. I think it might be potassium. No, I think potassium is K. I don't remember what P is. I don't know. But I know S is sulfur, O is oxygen, H is hydrogen, C is calcium, N is nitrogen. I think all I remember is just PS Cone. That's all I know. But that was my takeaway from chemistry, high school chemistry. That's it. And reading the book, The Bumblebee Flies Anyway.
Is that part of science?
And that was it.
I think I remember that book.
It sounds familiar.
That's not that's not Flowers of Algernon, right? No, that's a different book.
No, that was for physics.
Oh.
Flowers for Algernon made me cry. That was like that was intense. Flowers for Algernon.
Yeah, that book was I hate
that was trauma incorporated. Like it was a great book. Like I'm not gonna lie, but wow. It was sadness, and that was sadness.com. Like sadness just rolled up into one book.
Well, Michelle, so if you're pursuing a different path, aside from the law career that you're currently pursuing, what would you be doing and why?
It would definitely be art, for sure. Because as a kid, even growing up, I've always been like drawing. Like there's a myth, and there's always been the myth that Pablo Picasso's first word, or the first thing that ever came out of his mouth, was piece, which is shortened for lápiz, which in Spanish means pencil. And I think that to an extent, I kind of, I really, heavily relate to that, which is like I've always been, drawing and doing all these things, and always been like crafting and doing things with my hands. So I think if were it not for trying to really pursue a professional career, I think I would dedicate myself to doing like visual arts, full time.
Did you ever think that maybe there's something in art that would help you become a good lawyer, like qualities in your creative side and your art?
Probably thinking outside the box, maybe, because then if we kind of think back to the case of O.J. Simpson, we recall the infamous but particularly life-saving defense, which was if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. You know, like you have to really be kind of a low-key genius to really think of a defense like that, you know, because you also have to consider the legal aspect of the preponderance of well, preponderance of evidence is a civil thing, but in criminal law, it's the crap. What's the word? The weight of evidence in criminal law is, I already forgot because I've already been like out of college for like two minutes.
I would want to help you, but I don't know anything about law at all. Except
It's without a shadow of a doubt.
Oh, what is
So
it?
it's without a shadow of a doubt. So the moment that he put the doubt within the jury's mind that he couldn't, that if the glove couldn't fit in his hand, and therefore the glove that was worn during the murders, like that O.J. Simpson couldn't have possibly worn the glove that was put out, that was worn during the murders, like then therefore it couldn't have possibly been him. Then immediately the jury was like, crap, like one person, all it takes is one person in like a criminal jury to be like, well, like to throw their hands up and been like, well, I don't know, for it to be a hung jury. So that's what it did. That's what he did, and that's what got O.J. Simpson acquitted.
Oh.
So I think to go back to the point, I think that being able to think outside the box and kind of be creative and really be I guess like original with your thoughts, could probably correlate with law to an extent, or being an attorney at least.
So now we're at the part of the show we like to call past, present, and future. So we're going to explore 3 different timelines of your life. So let's start with the present. How do you see yourself now, and how does that person compare to the person you were 5 years ago?
It's funny. I was actually thinking about this question quite a lot. And this question was also brought up like last week during my therapy session. Because and then this question was also brought up to an extent like when I was like going to a job interview. And I hate this question because it's like, I don't know.
It's following you around. Uh-oh.
It follows me around everywhere I go. Well, I mean, if there's one thing for sure, like compared to how I was 5 years ago, like it's definitely like a night and day difference. Because 5 years ago, I was definitely like in I was in like the manic depressive state before going into the encephalitis. Before going into the coma and pretty much dying. And it's a drastic difference because 5 years ago I was manic depressive. I was pretty much going insane, and the difference is night and day, I think. And 5 years ago I honestly didn't think I'd really even think I'd be alive, so to speak, because my mental state was just I would venture to say just non-existent. It was just that bad. And and if I'm gonna say where I think I'm gonna be from now until from here until 5 years from now, probably in a much better state, because quite frankly because I'm still kind of suffering a little bit from the events that happened, both psychologically like and emotionally. But I've been improving, and I think I'm going to be in a much better state, in a much better place in 5 years. So I think in 5 years, I'm probably going to be graduating from law school. I'm probably going to be working either for the city or in a law firm. So I think that's where I'm going to be in 5 years.
Well, that's good. That's a very positive outlook you have. You're very optimistic. And, I feel like many people need to be that way, especially, when you come from a not so, great past previous years. And it's just good to just kind of keep looking towards that light.
Yeah, in society, often like mental health is something that's stigmatized. I mean, it's getting better today, but it's often been stigmatized like it's not as like, people think it's not as jarring or as bad as having like a physical disability, but it's a really big struggle for people to overcome, and something I've even overcome myself. So I think it's incredible that you've grown so much on that journey, and that you're in the place where you are today, where you can look brightly at the future.
Yeah, when I was talking to my therapist first about the whole situation, I unfortunately she hadn't seen the movie Kill Bill, and I don't know if you've seen the movie Kill Bill, the first movie at least.
I've heard of it, but I
No,
haven't
no, I'm
seen it yet.
sorry.
I've been
Uh,
meaning to watch it on Netflix though.
I mean, if you get the chance, watch it because it's an amazing movie. But there's a scene it's like it's in the first half of the movie where Uma Thurman is like funnily enough, coming out of the hospital from a coma, and she climbs into a truck, famously called the Pussy Wagon, and she climbs into the back part of the truck and she can't move her legs. So she wills her legs to move again. So she's like staring intently at her toes, and she says, move your right toe, move your right big toe. And then nothing happens. And then she says it again, move your right big toe, nothing happens. And then this happens a couple more times until it finally starts moving again like this. And then she says, all right, it's time to get these other little pigs moving. And then and then I think like a card says like 24 hours later. And then she finally like wobbles out of the car and goes into the driver's seat and drives away. So, and I really relate to that scene a lot because when I first came out of the coma, I kind of couldn't move my legs either. And at first, the doctors told my mom, your daughter is gonna have to learn how to read. She's gonna learn how to move. Like she's gonna pretty much be in like a toddler state again. And my mom at first was just kind of like, I don't believe it. And then my mom goes in to see me, and I was just kind of sitting there, and I'm like, and I couldn't talk at first because I still had the breathing tube and I had the tracheotomy. And I look at her, and I'm like signaling her because I couldn't say anything, and I'm just like doing this, like get the off me. And then my mom looks at me, and then she just like does this, and this is her recount of everything. She just does this. She walks back out to talk to the neurologist, and my mom's like, whatever you just told me just now, you're wrong. And the neurologist is like, what the hell are you talking about? And my mom explains to her what just happened. The neurologist is like, okay, hold on one second. Neurologist goes in. I don't remember any of this, but apparently this all happened. The neurologist is in there with me for apparently like 5 minutes, and then the neurologist walks back out, and then she just talks to my mom, and she's like, no, you're right, fam. You're right. No, you're right, fam. So, to an extent, it's just kind of like in a sense, I willed myself back to life, like Uma Thurman.
Oh wow.
That's incredible. The power of willpower.
I don't even know because it's like it just kind of happened. It's so weird. Like one moment, it's like I was just like vividly hallucinating, and then the next moment I'm in like NICU. It was NSICU, not even NICU. I'm sorry, I was in NSICU. It was really weird. And then in between I was like dreaming and like it was really weird.
Oh, man. You can definitely like make a story about that. Or have you ever tried like translating all of that into your art?
No, because after I came out of the encephalitis, I haven't been able to paint or draw like I used to. Like after the encephalitis, like I'm not sure how to say it, but like the artistic muse or like the ability that I once had, to just kind of put a pen to paper or like a brush to canvas, it's gone. Like I used to be able to just like put something to canvas and just do it, and I had like an idea and I just flowed perfectly onto whatever surface or medium, and now it's just gone. I can't do it anymore.
Oh man.
Like any semblance of originality that I used to have like 2-3 years ago, it's gone. And that's just something that I've had to live with all this time.
Well, with everything that you've gone through in your life and, all the hardships and, the good things also, what principles do you live your life by?
Just, I guess the first one would kind of have to be just keep swimming, quite literally. Do things while you still can is the second one. And the third one would have to be, it's kind of like a verbatim quote by Van Gogh. And it would be, what would life be if you didn't do anything? Which is kind of like to piggyback off the second one. So it's just like, just if you're gonna do something, just do it. you know
Right.
and it's not even like a life is precious type of thing. Like it's just, like if you see an opportunity to do something, just go for it. Like don't even think about, like the logistics or like how much money it's going to take. Well, yeah, sure, you can like, consider that, but just, go for it while you still can, because one moment you're breathing and then the next moment you could, you know be hit by a car, quite literally or metaphorically.
Mm. That's true. Life is unpredictable. You just never know where it's gonna be and where it's gonna take you. So, I guess it's always good to live your life like, it's your last day. Just every day just kind of just go all for it.
Pretty much. So I guess that's been my new life philosophy. And I guess the last one would also kind of be, because I do have one more. It's to not take things or people for granted. Because ever since my dad passed away, it's like, like it's kind of been like a vacuum. It's like it's so strange to have, because my dad, I don't know if you remember him, but he was like this huge guy.
Yeah.
And I still have his ashes here in the apartment, because I still haven't been able to let go, because I was like this with my dad. And for the longest time, during high school and before the encephalitis, I kind of like argued with my dad a lot. And quite frankly, before my dad died, I confessed to my dad that I was gay. And my dad was just kind of like in that final like state before he died, that he was kind of like, and he looked at me, and it just kind of like he didn't seem to process it. He was kind of like a deer staring into headlights, and it just kind of like entered like me telling him that, because I wanted him to know before he passed away, because he knew, because I knew, my mom knew, and I think he knew himself too, but he didn't say anything. And it didn't seem to like register. And it's like, and I kind of wish that I told him sooner. So I think the last, bit would be to appreciate people while they're still around. And yeah, I think that would be the last one. For sure.
Yeah, that is a good thing to live by, and actually leads perfectly into the next question that I wanted to ask. Well, you've already kind of answered it, but if there's anything else you wanted to include, what are you grateful for in life?
I think the grateful, funnily enough, I still do have like an answer for it. And I think the grateful part would be that, after, recovering from the encephalitis, the grateful part would be that I was able to still, to an extent, do some of my art after the encephalitis, and still be able to finish school after the encephalitis, and not, have been kind of left totally disabled. I still have a teeny tiny bit of like semblance of disability, because my grades, I was at like a 3.7 GPA in St. John's, and then it just like took a nosedive like this when I went back to school. But but it's not that bad, and for that I'm thankful. That it could have been worse, but it wasn't, and for that I'm thankful.
Well, we're thankful too that you're all healthy now, you're recovered, and you're optimistic about where you're heading. We're happy for you for that.
Yeah, and I'm also grateful that that my friends also didn't forget me. I still have friends.
Oh, heart.
Is this a heart? No, what am I doing? Is this? Yeah, I think this is it, right?
I've also
Okay,
been told
I
this
did.
is a heart too.
Yeah,
Like
this is
doing with like your thumb and your index finger.
I don't know. I thought wasn't this more of like
This one.
like an F off sort of thing?
No, I thought it's this one.
Oh, it's like that.
I like this better because it actually looks like a heart.
Yeah, because it's this one. Because this one you have to use your imagination.
Imagination.
Apparently, I've been watching a lot of Korean TV shows. That's why.
Oh.
Oh, is it a Korean thing?
Yes, I mean apparently because they use this a lot.
Oh yeah, I think it's I think we've seen that a lot in Asian culture. You know.
Yeah, like they use this a lot, and that's why I'm like, oh snap, you know.
Well, now I need to ask you something that's a part of this show. It's a big question that we ask here on our show. So, if you were to leave something in a time capsule for people to dig up 100 years later, what would you put in there and why?
Cassette mixtapes.
Oh, what would be on the mixtape?
It would be so here I wrote down different genres, eras, and types of music, and I would put down specifically cassette tapes because I thought about it for a while because there's like different mediums of where music can be transmitted or like where sound waves can be transmitted. There's like vinyls or like records, like laser discs, CDs, cassette tapes, obviously. I'm trying to think, like obviously the old gramophone records, X-ray vinyls, and I'm not really sure. I might be missing other mediums where music can, or at least sounds can be transmitted. USBs maybe, but I think the ones that would last the longest, or would be the more difficult to like be destroyed, are cassette tapes. So, and I think, and they probably hold more songs, and they would probably be the easiest to like find a way to like plug them into something and be able to listen to. And I would probably be able to put in like a bunch of different songs into them from like different times and like different eras, from things like ragtime blues to opera to like swing or big band music, just different kinds of songs from different times. Like I would probably even put in like a cassette tape with metal and like from like 60s, 70s, 80s, and like 90s music, like Rush, Slayer, like Nirvana, stuff like that. Because if someone eventually from like 300 years in the future is going to pull something like that up, plug it in, and be like, oh snap, this is music. And then they're going to be like, they're really going to think, well, this is music from, X day. They're going to think, well, this is music from different eras. So it's music that's been conserved or preserved rather. And it's just not so much like a preservation of one timeline. It's going to be a preservation of like different timelines. At least that was just my, because music is more of like at least to me, a better way to preserve like culture and really a generation, because if you listen to, for example, Glenn Miller, you immediately think of, like the Roaring Twenties or like the 40s rather, or you listen to like sea shanties, you immediately think of like the 1700s, or or something like that, or you listen to bardcore and you immediately think of the medieval times, stuff like that. So it'd be like a preservation of culture. That's what I thought. Just cassette tapes, cassette mixtapes.
Yeah, it's definitely a great reflection of the culture and the different eras that we've had in the past century.
Yeah, that's what I'd put in a time capsule.
For sure. All right. So, is there anything else you'd like to add to tell our viewers? Any final thoughts?
Stay in school. Do drugs. Use protection. Take your medicine. Remember to test for COVID regularly. Stay 6 feet apart. And remember, if you're going to protest, do it safely too. Let me try to think. What else? What other bits of wisdom could I impart? Let me try to think. I think that's it, really. Oh yeah, and to get vaccinated. That's another one. Get
There we
vaccinated.
go.
When like wave C comes around, get vaccinated. That's another important part. Because people are like apparently not trusting the vaccine for whatever reason. Get vaccinated. Like, come on, people. It's like getting the flu vaccine or the polio vaccine or the meningitis vaccine. Like, this is common sense. Come on.
That's true. Well, Michelle, thanks so much for being a part of our time capsule. And thank you to our viewers for watching. Please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Tune in again next week to meet another amazing addition to our time capsule.
Thank you for having
Thank
me
you so
on.
much.